Hello students, Dr. Newmark here. Right now on the screen, you'll see the prompt for your next major assignment, the data visualization project. I'm going to walk you through what's required in this assignment and show you the different websites that are referred to in the assignment prompt, and then show you a few student examples. So while lots of us are quite tired of living through this pandemic and the various impacts it's had on our lives, this assignment does train your attention on the pandemic, specifically on the ways data is collected and shared with the public in numerical fashion and in visualized data format. So as the assignment says, the purpose of this project is to exercise your skills in understanding data visualization, to practice skills in visual rhetoric relative to numerical and statistical data, and to work on extracting from large data sets smaller usable subsets that can be visualized for specific target audiences. The key watchwords of technical communication, audience, and purpose will guide all of your analysis and creation work in this project. So for this assignment, you're going to do two things. You're going to write a 2-page single-space descriptive analytic memo, that's for 60 points, and you're going to create a cumulative information graphic as a 1-paged PDF for 40 points. So you will create these two separate components, and then when you turn it in and learn, you're going to include both of them. So for this project, you have to look at a big data set. And of course, we're not data scientists, but I want you to consider ways in which some of the data can be extracted from a big, sort of tabular set of data and repurposed for other audiences. So the first bit of data is this bit, that's an understatement, massive volume of data is the CDC's case data for COVID, available via this link. And I'm just scanning through this assignment right now. Please be sure that you read every single word in it very carefully. So the first website is this, the CDC's United States COVID-19 cases and deaths by state. So I've actually sorted this left-hand column by date. So if you click on that, it goes from the beginning of COVID to now, 10/28/21. And you'll see that I've sorted it by date, but you can sort the states, you can sort by total cases, confirmed cases, probable cases, new cases. There's lots and lots of data here. And if you have more experience working with spreadsheets, you can probably manipulate this data in ways that I don't know. But you might want to look at, cases across various states in the United States on this day, the 28th of October, or you can focus in on a certain state. You're just expected by me to look at this, spend some time with it, and try to understand this raw data. Of course, that's not as easy as when you look at websites that already digest this data for you. So that's the next part of the assignment after you look at the raw data. So next, I want you to look at 3 websites that visualize COVID-19 data, focusing now on vaccination status, most of them do, that I've chosen for you. So you're going to look at the 3 that I've chosen, and then you're going to come up with 2 of your own choice. So for this module in our class, you're going to be doing textbook readings, but also reading material by Edward Tufte. And he's kind of the father of analysis of statistical representations of data and theorizing what works and what doesn't. And so you're going to be armed with lots of terminologies from reading his work that will help you understand how these visualizations are functioning, what they're doing well, what they're doing poorly from a design standpoint. So the first one is the Johns Hopkins University coronavirus website. The next one is newmexicohealth.org, and the next one is COVID Act Now. So here's what the Johns Hopkins one looks like. I've pulled this up on a Thursday, so you can see the information that they have here. They've got some data here on the left, and you can click in different places and see what you find. The next is the New Mexico Department of Health. Of course, there's some numerical data over here. And then here is COVID Act Now, and they have a data map as the first thing that you see, and you can scroll over different states and see different information. They have some bar graphs, and again, another data map. So I want you to, again, spend some time with all of these websites and think about how they present complex information in a usable way for the audience that they are targeting. That's the key component of what technical communicators do. They take complex information and they make it usable to a target audience. Okay, so after you've dealt with all of that, you've thought about it, you're going to compose a memorandum. In this memo, you're aiming to show me that you can analyze both numerical, unembellished data, that was the first data set, as well as data visualizations that intend to inform the public about complex scientific epidemiological information. So read all of this very carefully. It walks you through what you need to do in each section of this memo, and how you're going to use the content from our course, like from Markel and from Edward Tufte. You have to provide some of your own insights, and this instructional content here tells you how you need to do that. Now, the second part, the non-memo part, is the data visualization. So you're going to create a one-page informational graphic called COVID-19 and Me by the Numbers. I'm going to show you a few examples of this in a minute. So you're going to use at least 4 different styles of statistical data display to tell a story of your own or your local communities or the nation's experience with COVID-19. So I say in the assignment, listen carefully to this video. I'm going to show you examples of how this is done well. Now, given that we've moved into a phase concerning COVID where our attention is mostly focused on vaccination, you might want to focus on, if you are a vaccinated individual, how your life changed pre and post vaccine, whether you felt more comfortable doing things that you didn't do before. You could also just talk about the continued impact of COVID-19 on your and your family's life, whether it was a situation where you loved to travel before and you haven't been able to. There's lots of things that you could talk about in this data visualization. And the due dates for this are all listed in our course calendar, so be sure you pay attention to that. I've mentioned here how you're going to go about creating this infographic because I know we're not all graphic designers, and we're not all very expert at using some tools that might help this become easier for us. So read this paragraph and I share with you a few examples. Okay, so I want to show you first up students, let me see if I can pull it up here. Let's see, here we go. So this is the memo written by a student last fall. The assignment was slightly different because, of course, vaccine penetration was not the reality that it is now. So here is an assignment that actually got a really strong grade, particularly on the memo. So you'll see this student comes right out and says, the purpose of this memo is to analyze how websites track COVID-19 data, how they present and visualize complex technical information for a variety of audiences. Through this analysis, I will identify the strengths and weaknesses of the various data visualizations and whether there are ways for these organizations to improve how they interact and communicate with their target audiences. So this student explains the various sections of this memo. This first one is understanding the context, purpose, and audience of COVID trackers. The next is graphic design and audience-oriented communication. And then we have critiques and improvements and conclusions. So this is 2.5 pages in this memo. So this is a bit long. It could be trimmed down a touch, but it's still very good. You'll see that, let me pull up the, sorry about that. Here is the rubric that went with this. Let me center it on the screen here so you can see it. Now, when this student got the assignment back from me, they received this rubric. And so there's 60 points allocated to the memo. So you can see I have subdivided all of those points into different allocations listed here. And then I give the student an earned amount and I provide comments down here. So I say, good job with your opening purpose. That was a hard task to knit all of these strands together, but you did it. And so I compliment the student on clear and detailed section heading titles. I loved the background and context the student gave and using a source to back that up. The 4 websites were named and the student honed in on what they're trying to do for their audiences. The student very nicely and systematically looked at what kinds of visualizations the sites use. So you could pause the video here if you want and look a little bit more closely at what I say to this student. Now, the next part is the informational graphic. So let me show you what the student did for that. So this is the students' COVID-19 and me by the numbers, and they used Infogram to do this, and then in Learn, they just shared the URL with me. So the student says, time spent outdoors and indoors, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and social interaction, average amount of daily in-person interactions now versus pre-COVID, screen time from March to October 2020, and time spent studying. Now, honestly, I thought this was a little bit underdeveloped, but it was on target for using 4 different kinds of data visualizations. And overall, it attempts to tell a story of a before and during experience with COVID for this individual student. You can see on the rubric that I scored out of this allocated 40 points. I gave the student these earned points. And I said that I like the general idea of the infographic. Using more narrative blocks along with graphics would make the whole image cohere better as a story. I pointed out that there's some misleading graphics, like the one about the number of people the student interacted with each day. You say amount, but what does each icon mean? Does it mean an individual person or what? So this might seem obvious to the designer, but not to me as a viewer. And the student did not label the axes on the time spent studying graphic. And in the content that you read in your book, you'll learn how important that is. So in all, the student got an A minus, a 90, and that is a good score. So there's a lot going on here in this assignment. In the assignment prompt, I mentioned that the memo is worth 60 and the informational graphic is worth 40, but there's subcomponents to that, which you see here in this rubric. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is another student's the informational graphic, just so you have another idea of what that looks like. And this is another student's COVID-19 and me by the numbers. How has COVID-19 affected me and my community? They have a timeline here, some pie charts, a bar graph, and then these little caption bubbles that help to explain what all of this means. And this is really well done. So I'm just going to leave it on the screen here for a minute so you can look at it. And the student gives some information as to where things were pulled from, has a key for the pie charts. There's a little bit of ambiguous visualization here, but in all, as I was pointing out, by contrast with the other one that I just showed, this one coheres better as a unified, rich story, a little bit better than the other one. This one also received an A. I'm not showing you the memo that went along with this one, but this is another way that a student accomplished the one-page COVID-19 and me aspect of this. So if you have any questions as you're going through this assignment, do let me know. And I'm always here to help. So good luck with this assignment and talk to you soon.